I see what ho, chaps and chappets, Scone Chap and Bertie here.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, fellows, and I dare say, as you may know, Lucas is coming soon to Super Smash Bros. On Wii U and 3DS, and further to the point, Nintendo have confirmed he's going to be released this month. But the question we are asking in this video is this Earthbound character really deserving of a spot in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS?
Aha! Now this is a very good question indeed. Rather exciting news, I'm sure, for many.
Yes.
The fact that he will be coming out as DLC, as you say. Is he next month, he said?
This month, in fact.
This
June,
month.
that's right.
My word, so he's coming out quickly.
Very
yes,
soon.
Indeed. But Lucas, now the thing is, should he actually be in Super Smash Bros? Wii U version? That's the thing.
Right, indeed. And of course, there's a number of facets to this question. Firstly, people may say, well, of course he deserves a spot in Smash Bros. On Wii U because he was in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and many fans have been clamouring for his return.
Most certainly, he was indeed in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. But
Yes.
let's look at the history of where he actually comes from. He actually comes from, of course, the game Mother 3, which has been around since 2006, I believe.
That's right. Now, the game Mother 3 was a Game Boy Advance game, the third game in the Mother series, of course, and some said Earthbound 2 was its unofficial name. Of course, it was only actually released in Japan. That's right, it never saw the light of day in the West, so this particular Japan-only game featured Lucas as the hero who had a rather tragic tale.
So this wasn't a mainstream game then in Europe and America, North America, etc. so forth. It
Oh,
was
no.
just over there.
That's right.
So how did he get to be well known over here then?
Well, of course, arguably, a lot of people saw him in Super Smash Bros. Brawl and then started investigating as to where he came from, rather, looking into his backstory, etc. and so forth. And it was only due to a fan translation of the Mother 3 game that people were actually able to play that game in the West. If it had not been for the efforts of the community there, we certainly would not have been able to play Mother 3 over here. So, with a character so obscure and arguably very similar already to Ness in his execution, the question has to be raised, rather like Chrom, does he deserve a spot in this game?
Well, yes, indeed. Now, that's a good question. Does he? Well, that's difficult to say, of course, and it's based upon, of course, the opinions of many, many other people. No doubt would factor into that.
Yes.
But the thing is, you see, why not have other characters in there if you're going to have one like Luke from other games that are perhaps more well known or not necessarily super well known? For example, Adam, for example, from from Metroid.
Well, indeed, it certainly does raise that question. Certainly, Lucas, in his own game world outside of Smash Bros., is not really that well known. And as you say there, if you're going to have characters like Lucas in the game, I mean, where's Black Shadow? Where's some other characters from Metroid? Where's Dixie Kong? Where's other characters who are arguably more deserving than Lucas? Now,
Yes.
Personally, I was somewhat confused when I saw that Ike would be making a return in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, because of course Ike was already featured in Brawl, and arguably once again Ike's game is very old, so why is he being brought back is a natural question that might be asked. The same can be said about Dr. Mario, who's a clone, and also arguably even Dark Pit. I mean, why on earth is he in the game? But I think when it comes down to it, the reason why Lucas, Dr. Mario, Ike and some other perhaps cloney sort of obscure characters are finding their way into Super Smash Bros. Is actually because they are very popular as fighters in that game, not so much from where they came from, but actually in the game as fighters. And
Right.
if I'm super harsh, and I have to admit this myself, arguably even Captain Falcon himself, one of the series' main characters, he is only still in the game because of his popularity as a fighter. There hasn't been a main F-Zero game on consoles for 12 years, for goodness sake.
No, there certainly hasn't been, and indeed that's a very good point there when we asked the question, should Lucas be in Super Smash Bros? And yes, indeed, it's a popularity, is it not?
Yes.
They've played him before in the Super Smash Bros. Brawl, he's been well known there,
Right.
they found out about him,
Yes.
and now Nintendo think, well, why don't we introduce him here, and the fans and everyone receives him quite well without really thinking about it.
Right, and also for Nintendo, on the flip side there, it's an easy, quick cash grab, as it were. They can simply take Lucas's moves from Super Smash Bros. Brawl, slap a coat of polish on them, bung them in Super Smash Bros. On Wii U and say, there you go, there's a fan favourite returning character that's guaranteed to sell. And from their perspective, because people have already used Lucas in the past, they're almost guaranteed to buy him again.
Well, yes, indeed, that's an interesting point. And of course, just thinking once again, should he be in there? You just mentioned his moves.
Yes.
What sort of moves do you think this little chap will have, or do we already know?
Well, I think we already have a very good idea after having seen the trailer of how he's going to control and behave in the game, very much based upon his Brawl self, as I say, with his famous up smash move intact, his very fast pace, down tilt, etc. and so forth, and no doubt he'll have PK's Starstorm as well, so I don't think we can expect too many surprises from this particular character. Once again, though, I have to raise the question question, would the time of the dev team of Super Smash Bros. Have been better spent adding fan-favourite characters into the game and highly requested characters other than Lucas? I mean, is this chap really deserving of the dev team's time and of our money?
Well, that's true, yes indeed. I suppose that's a very good point. And of course we've got this list, this voting thing that they're doing at the moment.
Yes.
Voting for you and the characters you'd actually like to see in Smash Bros. Wii U. And of course there have been many put forward there. Whether they'll act on them we don't know, but they've certainly produced this one for now.
Yes, that's right. We've seen Lucas here as the latest DLC character. He is, of course, the second DLC character, the first one being Mewtwo, who was well received. And if you ask me, Mewtwo was a deserving returning character, whereas I don't really think Lucas is. Other than perhaps I know a lot of people did like playing as Lucas in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Smash Bros. Aside, though, he doesn't really belong in the game as a returning character, if you ask me.
Well, yes, indeed. I mean, and think about that. Where's Snake?
Well, I mean, where is Snake?
I mean, where is Snake?
For goodness sake.
Perhaps he's going to be released in a future DLC, maybe.
I think so. I hope so.
Yes, I mean, the thing to think of as well with these DLCs, I mean, obviously, it's a good number for a Nintendo if they're producing DLC all the time because they can sell them, so they've got to come up with characters to include within the DLC. So could we expect to see in coming months, or dare I say even years if they don't bring a game out for a couple of years, lots and lots of DLC packs with all sorts of characters popping up?
I certainly think so, and if you ask me, I mean, if you're going to choose a returning character to include in the game, where's Wolf? He's a very popular character with the fans, and where are the Ice Climbers? Characters like this who should definitely be returning, in my opinion.
Well, yes indeed, very good point, and of course, perhaps they might be turning up, but Nintendo seem to think that the time to bring Lucas in is actually now.
Well, they certainly seem to think that way. Of course, we do already know that on the cards already is the very popular character Roy. Now, Roy originates from Fire Emblem, as you may recall, once again an obscure and I believe Japan-only game there. Certainly, he shouldn't be very well known in the West, and neither should Lucas, but both of those characters are well known over here, arguably thanks to Smash Brothers, you'll say.
Most certainly, just thinking there as well, you just mentioned that character. I mean, the Monster Hunter is very, very popular in Japan as well.
Yes,
and there's one or two well-known characters within that, of course, the Cavalier, etc., so forth. Could they turn up in there?
Do you mean perhaps could we see a Monster Hunter in the game? I mean, it's a possibility. Yes. He could certainly hunt and fight in a very unique way. That's a good point, Trap. Other games that are currently popular in Japan may also see the possibility of inclusion in the game.
The Senran Kigoro Girls!
Yes, like Katsuragi, Trap.
Well, exactly.
On a serious note, I think that if Nintendo are going to be including any characters in this game, they'll have to look at all regions around the world, because they obviously won't want to make a character just based on the Japanese market if we're not going to buy it in the West, and vice versa.
Well, no, indeed, yes. I mean, they've said that they're going to look out. They won't just go for Nintendo characters; they'll go outside as well. And of course, we had, I think it was Phil Spencer calling for one of it was Banjo-Kazooie, wasn't it, I think?
That's right, and I also believe many members in the community were calling for characters such as Freddy Fazbear, Goku, and who was the other one? Oh, Shrek, that's right.
They were all calling for them, yes indeed, Fazbear and all the rest of them. So
and I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, I don't really think they have much of a chance,
How do we know? We don't know that.
But
who knows what they'll do?
No, for sure. But what I would like to just throw into the ring there, into the mix, is of course Steve from Minecraft. And you may say, well, that's impossible because Minecraft's owned by Mojang, but of course now they're actually owned by Microsoft, and Phil Spencer has already given the okay for Banjo-Kazooie, who is currently under the Microsoft wing, so therefore it's not completely outside the bounds of possibility to imagine Mr. Spencer also giving the okay for Steve.
That's very interesting indeed, yes, and it could possibly, I mean, or should I say it the other way around, could it possibly happen, my goodness?
Well, if you ask me,
it possibly could.
Steve would be a very interesting character. Now, we've raised a lot of names there, Fedels, and in my opinion, all of those names are much more deserving than Lucas. I mean, perhaps, as I say, it's just a quick, easy buck for Nintendo, and a lot of fans might be looking forward to his return just purely for the fighting style he provides, but on the topic of, pure deservedness, if there is such a word, I don't think Lucas really fits the bill.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I mean, I don't know what the listeners think, chaps and chappets, and general listeners listening to this, think about that. Do you think, do you play Lucas and think he's a rather good character and you like him, or do you think, well, no, perhaps they could have left him till later, or we could have had someone better or more in keeping with what what everyone wants.
Exactly, I
Joining
think
now.
that's a very good point. And if Lucas fans do ask themselves, do we play Lucas for the character in Smash Brothers, or do we play him for his character in Mother 3? I think 9 times out of 10 they're going to say, well, I play him because of his fighting style and because I just like him in Super Smash Brothers, not necessarily in the original Japan-only game.
Precisely, yes, and I was just going to kick that in as well, with regard to actually how the character plays. Perhaps people are looking for characters, not so much they want to play them, but obviously want to win.
Yes.
So they're going to be looking for characters joining here that have good attributes, good fighting skills, etc., so forth.
Well,
to
yes,
help
yes.
them to actually win, rather than just adding characters to just play with.
Exactly, old boy, indeed, and I think we're going to see a lot more variety from Nintendo in the future because they have so many ways they could expand the roster, yet at the same time they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot by making so many characters that it rules out, I should say, the possibility of a future Smash Brothers game. They might snooker themselves down the line with another game on another console if this game is just too good.
Well, certainly, yes, indeed. I mean, we've got, well over 50 characters now, isn't it? Must be hitting up to 60 or more now, I think.
Well, exactly. So there you are, videos. I dare say this hasn't even been Game Chap and Bertie discussing Lucas in Super Smash Bros. Will you be picking up this fighter? Do let us know, and of course your thoughts on whether or not he deserves the spot in the roster.
Most certainly, yes, do let us know, certainly. And of course, also, if you're interested in Monster Hunter, that we mentioned earlier, there's some new DLC coming out for that actually today. Pop over to the Chaps Play on the channel and have a look at that if you'd like to.
Well, videos, this hasn't even been Game Chap and Bertie, and thank you most kindly for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you once more on the next exciting outing, I say. Until then...